Support for Arkansas Week provided by the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, the Arkansas Times, and KUAR FM 89.
Hello and welcome to Arkansas Week. I'm your host, Dawn Scott. Good to be here with all of you today. A topic tonight very close to my heart. On February 28th, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders announced an initiative aimed at increasing the number of foster care parents in the state of Arkansas. Every Child Arkansas is a collaboration that includes public and private organizations, and it's designed to streamline the process for foster care and adoption. We will be talking with those leading this very ambitious effort. But first, here are some thoughts from state foster parents.
They started calling me mom. I never made them, but they just started calling me mom right away. And it was just like, okay, I'm a mom now. Literally, like I'm a mom now. And I would be like,
It really is fun. It's fun to play house. It's fun to babysit, but you're not calling to babysit. Foster care is you're calling to be the parents of children who do not want you to be the mom.
We had a placement that was at the Boys and Girls Club, and the Chick-fil-A cow came to visit the club. And for whatever reason, my child punched the Chick-fil-A cow.
Some of my kids are throwing me through a loop. It's their second time in care, and they've been through this before. And that's part of our biggest issues is we were home by now. What do you mean we're still in foster care?
I'm just here to help and love and heal and be a soft place in a really hard spot for this child.
Foster care is not a permanent solution. The goal of every situation, unless you're adopting, is reunification with the family.
You're not there to fix them. You're there to help them survive what is arguably the most traumatic experience of their life. That's your job, is to help them survive that with minimal damage. And, you know, if you can help them blossom along the way, then that's a bonus.
Real talk there. They, being children in foster care, do not want you to be their parent, yet that's what they're tasked with doing. So joining me now to talk about Every Child Arkansas, Kristi Putnam, who is the Secretary of the Arkansas Department of Human Services, also Mischa Martin, the Deputy Secretary for Youth and Family Services. And we also have in studio with me here a very dear friend in this fight, Christie Erwin, the Executive Director of the Project Zero. Thank you all so much for being here, joining all of us in the state in this fight. And as one of the parents said there, the foster parents, we're here to help love and to help heal in this very, very difficult time. And Kristi, I'd like to start with you, the Secretary of the Arkansas Department of Human Services. I want to know the origins of Every Child Arkansas. Where was this born? How did we organize this collaboration?
Well, Dawn, I appreciate the question. But as you know, I started here in January, and Every Child Arkansas had its origins way before January. And there's a lot of work that's gone into this effort. Mischa and Christie Erwin have been leading the charge for a very long time. We did some similar work in Kentucky when I was at the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, but to give credit where credit is due and to really give you a great idea of what work's been going on with Every Child Arkansas before it launched, I'd like to ask Deputy Martin, Mischa, to go ahead and talk about the background of this initiative.
Sure. Thank you so much, Secretary. So this initiative really was born out of our partners and stakeholders and communities. So our partners that are in this work, whether it's Connected Foster Care, Project Zero, The Call, so many, I can't even begin to name them all. They came to us and knew that we needed to work together to ensure that we had enough foster parents as well as additional resources. And their first focus was, how do we get enough foster parents for the children who do come into care? And so thankfully, it was our community and our partners that worked with Children and Family Services to start brainstorming, what does it look like for us to work together to recruit foster parents and ensure there's enough support for the children and families that are served across our state.
So good to see so many come together. What, a follow-up question to you, Mischa, what is changing from the existing model and what wasn't working there?
Well, for one thing, what hasn't been working is a consistent message and targeted recruitment. We have so many great partners across the state who've been trying to help recruit foster families for us, but we needed to come together and put out that message in a unified way, and also make it easy if people are interested in foster care to know how to become a foster parent. So prior to Every Child Arkansas, you might have heard of several organizations that worked in the foster care space that open foster homes, but you didn't even know where to start. Do I go to Children and Family Services? Do I go to find a website for a nonprofit? With Every Child Arkansas and the initiative to recruit foster parents, you go to one website, you can put in your zip code, and you can look at who is working in your community to open you as a foster home, and you have a selection. Like, you can pick, do you want to work with Children and Family Services? Or would you rather work with one of our nonprofit faith-based partners to become an open and licensed foster home?
Well, and Kristi runs one of the nonprofit partners, the Project Zero, and you are targeting primarily adoptive families to help children find permanency, but you also help identify foster families and guide them through the process as well. What does that look like today?
Well, you know, we do, through our website, we get lots of questions from, I think our logistics coordinator said we answered 10,000 inquiries last year about waiting kids and about, you know, the process. And so since we don't officially open homes, we are filtering folks to those organizations that do open foster homes and adoptive homes. And so this gives us the ability to just say, go to the Every Child Arkansas website, enter your zip code, and you'll have your choices for how you want to get to become an open and approved adoptive or foster family.
Well, so for anyone watching this, Christie Erwin, and they're sitting there thinking, could I do this? What does it mean to be a foster parent? What does it look like? You've been a foster parent. What does it look like?
Well, I think for me, you know, my husband and I were foster parents for 19 years, and we started in the private sector with an adoption agency and then eventually moved to Arkansas DCFS. And so for us, first and foremost, it was a calling. And I believe that the children that come into foster care often get a bad rap. But the bottom line is they are precious. They have come into foster care through no fault of their own. And so we looked at it as our job to welcome them in, love them as if they're our own children while we are working through the process to get them back home. And so it was, I often say it was the most beautiful and most difficult thing we've ever done.
Well, we heard from one of the parents just a moment ago, they punched the Chick-fil-A cow, and I'm sure you've seen that. And I think part of this initiative is to also provide some mental health counseling to not only foster parents, but also the children in this as well.
DCFS does a really good job of ensuring that there are therapeutic options for kiddos. And so I think part of Every Child Arkansas is just the post support, the pre and post support, training, getting folks to understand that you can't parent a child that comes into foster care like you parent a biological child. There are things you need to know about trauma and about kiddos that come from hard places. And you know, they deserve for us to learn those things so that we can help them heal and grow and bloom and become all they were created to be.
Yeah, I want to move to Kristi Putnam. When we're talking about this sort of mental health and these very, very personal challenges, things that a lot of times our children may not share or they're very personal to them, how does the state in more of a macro role really get in there and help? Do we have the ability to do that? Do we have the resources really to do that?
So we have resources available, but there are always opportunities to provide more. And one of the priorities that I've come in with after meeting with staff and after working with folks here on the ground for about 3 months now, is we really want to focus on 4 priorities. One of them is the continuum of behavioral health services available from birth all the way through end of life. And, really zeroing in on our vulnerable populations and our areas where we need the most help. One of those areas is in our out-of-home care realm, where we can maybe provide some additional supports and resources, both to the foster families who need the mental health support and services, but also to the children who come into care. So so the answer is yes, we do have some resources, and we have some very good resources. We need to build out more supports, and we also need to focus on, we're seeing children with really higher behavioral health needs, more complex cases is what we call them, but they're children who really need additional supports both while they're in school and when they're in with their foster families.
And Mischa Martin, I want to talk to you about what is called the contingent. So this is something that is a component of this Every Child Arkansas that is new to the state of Arkansas. But the aim is to recruit more qualified foster families. Can you explain what the contingent is? There were this was done in Oregon, the state of Oregon, and I'd like to know more about the results that we're seeing there also with the contingent specifically.
Well, we are so excited about our partnership with the Contingent. It is a company out of Oregon, and they worked closely with Oregon's Children and Family Services to start recruiting foster families in a different way. And so they have what they call an air game and a ground game. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the air game first, because the air game is what's new to Arkansas and what we're partnering with. While in Oregon, in a year, they had less than 200 inquiries into foster families. When they partnered with the Contingent, they saw an increase of over 2,000 inquiries from families to become foster families. And what the Contingent is partnering with us to do is put out specific messaging, and again, I'll talk about the air game, using social media and other platforms to target people, and it's a diverse group of people, but it's people that are also like our current foster parents, to really do targeted messaging and get the word out into our community about becoming a foster family. And what that looks like, which we've never done before, is we're sharing stories of all of our different agencies, success stories. We're also, more importantly, sharing some of our kids, whether it's kids' stories through Project Zero. Of course, we're always want to make sure that our kids' stories are confidential, but we're doing it in a way to protect them. But we're sharing with the community what is happening in their local area and what the need is, so that hopefully the word really gets out about what is the foster care system, what is the need, and doing it in a more targeted way, and making sure that we're recruiting the right people. So, we need a diverse population, but we also need families who are interested in taking our older kids. And when I say older, I mean like 10 and up, sibling groups, and kids with developmental disabilities. Those are the kids that really need a family and thrive with a family.
I do want to ask, it's phenomenal from 200 to 2,000, and I hope that happens here, but I do have to wonder, are we able to handle that influx, not only financially, but also just in terms of training?
Yeah, so we have been preparing with our partners. Let me also say what I didn't talk about was the ground game. So in Arkansas, we have had a pretty strong ground game with our partners, meaning boots on the ground, grassroots, recruiting foster families. So that is a difference between us and Oregon. So we've had a strong ground game with our nonprofits, but we have been preparing. So something that we are doing differently that we haven't done in the past is we are partnering with organizations that are what we call private license placement agencies to open foster homes and license them. So for months in preparation of this launch, they've been making sure that they're ready for more inquiries and trainings, and we have as well.
Who ultimately will be responsible for the parents and also the welfare of the children once they start fostering? I'm assuming it is the state, but we're involving so many people now that I feel like we have to ask.
Well, at the end of the day, Children and Family Services is responsible for every child in foster care. But we are, through contracting with private license placement agencies to open and license those foster homes. So they do answer to the Child Welfare Licensing Board. They also answer to our contract at Children and Family Services. But at the end of the day, DHS, Children and Family Services, is responsible for the care and custody of almost 4,200 children in foster care and will remain so.
That's right. And 4,200 seems like such a large number of kids in care. But when you break it down by community, it really is possible to find families in each community to support those kids in their communities.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. I do want to ask, I know part of this initiative is aimed to speed up the process to, I believe I read, around 2 months from the time of interest to the time that they'd be available to accept in children in Arkansas foster care. Is there any concern with that timeline? Are you able to truly vet someone and make sure that these homes and these people are safe for these children?
Well, Dawn, to clarify that timeline, I think the timeline that you saw around the 2 months is specifically around relatives. And so in Arkansas, we've been doing a great job of the first placement be with a relative or fictive kin. And those homes are initially vetted and then have an ongoing process with specific training. We do want to make sure that foster homes are open in a time frame that's appropriate for them. So, by the way, some foster parents are not going to want an expeditious process. They want to kind of soak in, do the training, figure out what's best for their family and their kids. And we're not going to push them or rush them. So, but we want to make sure that we have a process that is less bureaucratic red tape and more about focusing on what's needed to make sure that we have safe, appropriate homes.
And financially, our state can do this, yes? I know there's federal money involved, and do we have state money for this?
So absolutely, we have the money that's needed to make sure that we have foster home for children. And frankly, it costs the state less money to place kids where they need to be. So we spend less money when kids are in foster families versus when they're residential. But we also know it's not about the money. It's about having kids in the right placements, and kids belong with families.
Any final thoughts from either of you, Mischa or Kristi Putnam?
So I would just like to invite everybody to go to the Every Child Arkansas Facebook page and follow it, share it. This is all about, we want to have a family, as Mischa said, we want to have a family for every child in care that's appropriate to go into a family home. And so with that, Mischa, do you have any other thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, and I just want to say real quickly, even if you've never thought about being a foster parent before, but everybody always asks me, well, what can I do if I don't want to be a foster parent? It would be a huge help to us if you like us, follow us, and share on Facebook, because that helps more people see the word and see our posting. So you might be the one that makes a big difference just by liking our page on social, the Every Child Arkansas page on social media.
All right, Kristi Putnam, the Secretary of the Arkansas Department of Human Services, and Mischa Martin, the Deputy Secretary for Youth and Families. Thank you both for sharing with us. We'll be back with more thoughts in just a moment.
If I could have any birthday wish, I would want a forever home. That or maybe 2 more Barbie dolls.
Just having a family that's going to be there and actually spend time with me and just let me have a family instead of pushing me away would be absolutely amazing.
I want a family who has a sister about my age. We can go shopping and stuff a lot, get our hair done and nails, and do a lot of fun stuff.
And we are back to continue this conversation on the state of Arkansas foster care and all of the changes being proposed and being made. And Christie Erwin is with me in the studio, and she's the executive director of the Project Zero. And you came to get this name, the Project Zero, meaning 1 + 1 = 0. To explain, it would be one adoptive family with one or a sibling group of children
That's right.
adopted equals 0, meaning that's one less waiting in the system. So you have primarily worked to place children permanently, but the goal really is always to try to get them back home and provide a safe space for them in the process where they're figuring out if they can go back home or not.
Absolutely. I think, just understanding that, foster care and adoption are not how it should be. I mean, honestly, every child deserves to have the opportunity to grow up in their family of origin, healthy, happy, whole. But we know that that is not always the case. And You know, it's just gut-wrenching to know, you know, on a personal level what our children have been through. And so when that is not an option, when parental rights are ultimately terminated after every reasonable effort has been made to get kiddos back home, Plan B, which ends up being Plan A, is adoption. And so Project Zero's goal is very simple, and that's to have 0 children waiting to be adopted in our state. And so our staff is fighting for that 24/7 because we believe that our kiddos belong in homes and they belong with a family. And it doesn't take very long, as you well know, because you've met many waiting kids over the course of your career. It doesn't take long to meet them and to understand how desperately they want a family.
Desperately.
You
know, one of the things that's interesting, speaking about this family of origin and wishing for them to be a part of their family of origin, but there's often so much trauma there. How do we stop that generational trauma that we know now is passed from generation to generation, even if you escape it?
Right. Well, it is definitely cyclical, and it is profound. You know, one of our foster sons that was in our home 17 years ago went back home to a family of 12 children, and to watch, have been a part all these years of his family and the dynamic and the help needed, and to watch as catastrophic things happen because there was no intervention made. And then on the other hand, you know, we are blessed to have 2 children that came to our family through adoption, and to see the difference in their lives, not because we're anything special by any means, but because the cycle was broken and their lives have taken a different trajectory. And so, you know, it's going to take the masses stepping in, and whether that's foster care, adoption, or whether that's just supporting someone that is loving on kids, they deserve that.
One of the things that sticks out most to me about this initiative, that I actually like the most about this, is the idea that truly we're making this available so much easier and for so many people, because for so long people would say, oh, I just can't do that, or oh, it's just too much, or it's too much red tape, or I just don't want to get involved. But it appears, and I don't know if this is true or not, it appears that this is an effort to truly make it more seamless and easier for all of us in some way to get involved. I noticed you could, even if you just wanted to volunteer, and you have volunteers through your organization to help with prom, or to give prom dresses, or to help with Christmas, or just basic things that children don't get.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, on the one side, you know, I've always felt like the paperwork was just a very small price for any of us to pay to love on kids, you know, and so I've kind of had a little bit different thought about that. But I do believe that getting the word out, as you said, to the masses, so many times people don't help because they don't know what help is needed. And so to be able to put it out there, yes, we need foster parents. Yes, we need people to bake casseroles and stock some fridges. And yes, we need adoptive parents. And we need people to come and play games at events with kids. And you know, all of those kinds of things give people options of how they can be involved and how they can help.
And everyone has a different gift to give, and so this kind of opens it to that. What do you like most about this? Clearly you support this, Every Child Arkansas.
Well, I feel like we're a little bit on the periphery, because we are, you know, we're not recruiting foster parents per se. And so, you know, we can kind of look at it as a whole. And I think my friends who are running organizations that are training and supporting foster and adoptive families, it's really cool to see them all of us come together. It's really cool to see casting visions for what could be. You know, how could we, you know, in our case, it's what better post-adoptive support can we offer? You know, in other cases, it's how can we support foster families in creative ways to allow them to stay put and to stay helping and to stay in the fight for our kids.
I think it's needed and necessary, and it does appear to streamline this process in so many ways. And you're partnered with these people already the DCFS
Right.
and the call and all of the organizations. And I think we're all needed.
Yes, absolutely. It is. And we have, we've just had a powerful partnership with Arkansas DCFS and have worked with adoption staff across the state. Obviously, we're working with every waiting child in the state. And so to see them, sending messages during the night, that they're heartbroken over something or they're joyful over a child being adopted. It's just really neat to kind of be a team. And this has just made our team bigger, so to speak. So.
Who should not apply to foster, in your opinion?
Oh, well, I think a lot of people, it's what you said a minute ago that really kind of piqued my mind, is people saying, well, I'd get too attached, Well, the bottom line is, if you get too attached, you're the perfect person, because, these kiddos don't need somebody to just babysit them. They need someone to just wrap their arms around them and go all in with that. And so, people obviously with a criminal record do not need to apply.
Sure.
Single people can foster and adopt, and I think sometimes that's a big question. Can singles, anyone, I believe the age is 21 and over, can foster and adopt.
I think anyone with a big heart who can love and heal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And is just willing. You don't have to be wealthy. You don't have to, just be willing and ready to step into it.
Kristi, thank you. This concludes our program tonight. And if you're interested in learning more about the collaboration, you can go online to everychildarkansas.org. Thanks for being with us.
Support for Arkansas Week provided by the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, the Arkansas Times, and KUAR FM 89.